Okay, so on this question, they want us to find the inverse for each of the following functions. So they've given us f, g, h, and j. And in each case, they want us to find the inverse. That little -1 power thing means inverse function, opposite function. Well, how do you do that? How do you find the opposite function? It's actually very simple. Let me write the instructions over here. To find f inverse, the inverse function, there's just two simple steps. Step number one, you invert, because it is the inverse function. You invert or switch. A little better there. Switch x and y. So you just trade positions with x and y. Switch x and y. Step two, solve for y. Switch x and y, invert x and y, solve for y. That's all there is to it. All right, let's come down here and do part A. So coming down here for part A. So my function f of x is 7x plus 3. So we're going to find the inverse function. So the first thing to realize is the f of x, that's your y. Function letters, f of x, g of x, h of x, j of x, whatever. That's your y. That's what y is. That's by common agreement in the math science world. Functions are y values. So, okay, so what? So step number one, switch or invert x and y. Okay, so these guys are going to trade spots. So it'll become x is 7y plus 3. That makes sense. Just swap them. That's what inverse function means, right? It's an inverting of x and y, inputs and outputs, x and y. Trade spots. So you invert them. Step two, solve for y. Get y alone. Y said, I want to be alone. I want to be alone here. So say, okay, subtract 3. Both sides cancels out. 7y is x minus 3. Last step, divide by 7. You can divide by 7 all the way like that. You know, one big bar, or you can do both of them, whatever. So there it is. F inverse function equals x minus 3. I'll just write it that way. It's the same thing, whether you write, you know, two separate bars or one big bar, whatever. The 7 is divided underneath both of them either way. Either one, it'll take either one as the right answer. All right, let's do part B. So part B, same kind of thing. G of x equals 5x to the third minus 4. All right, now that's y. Right, function values, f of x, g of x, those are your y, by common agreement in the math science world. And so then what do we do? Step number one, switch them, invert them. That's what it means to be an inverse function. You invert x and y. So these guys are going to trade spots. This will become x out here and y over there. And then we, step two, solve for y. Add 4 to both sides. Boom, boom. And then trying to get y alone, divide by 5. Boom, wait over here for a second. So we get y cubed is x plus 4 over 5. We're almost there. So far, so good. This making sense? Y to the third power is x plus 4 over 5. Now, last step, we want to get y alone. And so what do we do about that third power? Well, there's two ways you can do it. You can, to get rid of that third power, you can go parentheses, 1/3 power, parenthesis, 1/3 power. That's fine. Or let me show you the other way. That's correct. or you can do a third root. Root with the 3, root with the 3. I'll just do it that way. And that's the opposite. A root is the opposite of a power. So if you have a third power, do a third root. If you have a fourth power, do a fourth root. They're the opposites of each other. They cancel each other out, like a poison and the antidote or something, right? Acid and a base. They neutralize each other. So what do we get then? The third root of x plus 4 over 5. And so there's the inverse function. That is, in fact, let's just call it what it is. It is G inverse. So there we go on that one. All right, and now part C. Part C right here. H of x is 7 over x plus 4. Oops. All right, and I'm gonna find the inverse function. So this is y. Again, the function values are y values. F, G, H, those are y. Step 1, switch x and y. So x goes out here, y goes over there, right? We switch them. That's what we're always doing. So we're switching x and y. Step 2, solve for y. So I've got to solve that little equation for y. Y is saying, I want to be alone. Well, what do we do when we have like a fraction like that? Well, you put the other guy over 1 to make it look like a fraction, right? We haven't changed anything. And then you cross multiply. So it'll become x times y plus 4 is 1 times 7. Remember that? So you put the x over 1, you have 2 equal fractions, you go diagonal, diagonal. You cross multiply when you have 2 equal fractions. And so then distribute, boom, boom, xy plus 4x. 1 times 7 is 7. Okay, and now what are we trying to do here? Y. Y is right here saying, I want to be alone. So we got to get rid of stuff, right? So subtract 4x from both sides. And boom and a boom. Bring this down. X1. 7 minus 4. It's kind of a lot of work here, huh? And then the last step to finish getting y alone is to divide by x. Now you can divide by x like one big bar. That's probably the best way to do it. And that's it. That's what we do here. This is h. This is h inverse. It's 7 minus 4x all over x. We're done. Now, remember, you might be tempted to cancel those x's, but you cannot. Remember, adding, subtracting means you can't cancel anything. And you might say, well, yeah, but that x is just multiplied. Well, it's multiplied by something that's involving adding, subtracting. So it's part of a package still. You cannot cancel those x's. You have to just leave it like that. You cannot cancel the x's. One other option is you could have put the x under each one separately. Let me show that. You could have done this. You could have said, or I'm going to put the x under each one separately. That's okay to do also, right? Because you can tell right here, right? The bar goes all the way across, so the x is dividing both of them. So you can divide them both separately or as one big bar. And then if you do that, now it's okay to cancel these x's. And so this is also a valid answer. That's 7 over x minus 4. That's okay to do. Do you see why it's okay to cancel the x's here? Because once you separate them, then there's no adding, subtracting. You cannot cancel part of an added, subtracted package. So these guys are subtracted, so you can't cancel the x's. But once you separate them, then you can cancel these x's. So my point is, either one of these answers is okay. You don't have to do both. I'm not saying you have to do both. But I am saying on the multiple choice exam, we take on this material, make sure you recognize either version is accurate. Either version is the right answer on that. All right, and now we have one more part to go, don't we? Finally, part D, J of X. And so let's do it. J of X is the, what is it? It's the cube root of X plus 5. Coming on down here. D. Cube root of X plus 5. Okay, so that's Y, right? The function letters are the Y by common agreement. And we want to find the inverse. So step 1, invert or switch X and Y. So I grab that Y, grab that X, and switch them. So it becomes X out here and Y over there. And then step 2, solve for Y. So Y is saying, I want to be alone. So how do you get Y alone? You do third power, because powers are the opposites of roots. That makes sense? Powers are the opposites of roots. So if you got a third power, do a third root. You got a third root, do a third power. And they will what? Cancel each other out. So that'll just become Y plus 5, no more root, equals X cubed. Does that make sense? Roots and powers are the opposites of each other. They cancel each other out. And then finish up. Subtract 5 from both sides. Trying to get Y alone, right? And so Y equals X cubed minus 5. And so that's the Y, which is, you could write, if you want, you could write J inverse of X is X cubed minus 5. That is the inverse function. So how do we find an inverse function? We invert X and Y, and then we solve for Y. Do whatever it takes to get Y alone. And once you've done that, you've found the inverse function because you inverted X and Y and then solved. So you found the inverse function. And so there we go.